let's talk about what's next at this point. I mean, obviously there are protests going on, and let's talk about what on the ground in Israel, even the impact this is having on Palestinian relations. What concerns you?
Well, look, in terms of what's next, we don't know the protests, as you say, do they intensify? I think that's likely. I mean, the pilots, are a big piece here. The Air Force pilots of the military. I mean, I was struck by when military officials routinely say in public now 60 to 70, 60 and 70% of all flights of Israel against Hezbollah or Iran and
Mm-hmm.
Syria and things like that are all done by reservists. So if a lot of the reservists walk off the job, it impairs Israel's ability. Maybe it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
impair it tomorrow morning, but if they're not trained, they can't fly.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't fly, then this impairs Israel's ability. And you don't want the wrong people to get the wrong ideas, like the Iranians and Hezbollah. So I am concerned about that. Um, then, where does this go kind of in terms of is there a standoff? Because the courts are now they're going to rule on is this a legal law or not. I mean, they've only disqualified very few laws over the last 25 years once they got new power, and but anyway, of course, to their critics, any law they overturn is one too many. So, will there be a constitutional standoff or a basic law standoff where the courts say, hey, this was an overreach by the Knesset, and we're
Mm-hmm.
disqualifying this law? And then what does the police do? What does the army do? What does the Shin Bet do? What does the Mossad do? Israel's intelligence agencies.
Yep.
Like, who do they listen to? Do they listen to the courts? Do they listen to the government? It's uncharted waters. We just really don't know. Well, so the next couple months until this becomes clarified, till the court rules, it's just a mess, and we don't know. Now, this brings me back to the president, and it gets to a
Mm-hmm.
key point. What does the United States do? Because I believe what the president said. Look, U.S. Israel security cooperation is ironclad, and anything with that security thing I want to mess with at all. And that's his brand. And every, whether you like President Obama or you didn't like him, he always said security is above policy difference. So I tend to believe that. But there's a gray zone here. And the gray zone is that this president, and this is like, I think, a fascinating thing. And we've been focused on the war in Ukraine and China, so this isn't kind of under the radar a bit. But
Mm-hmm.
this administration, I think, truly would like to see a breakthrough with Saudi Arabia in the first quarter of 2024. Now, some would say, "Oh, this is all for politics. He's going an election year." It could be, but it also could be that given all the talk of China and Iran and Saudi Arabia drawing closer, that this is a refutation of that. That, you think that you guys are getting closer at America's expense, and America's leaving a vacuum in the Middle East because America is pivoting towards China. I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
tell you the Biden administration is going to, move towards a U.S. Saudi defense treaty, or I mean, something very ambitious. And part of that is also going to be a historic Saudi Israeli normalization. And that's like, wow, that is a earth shattering thing. It would be like, maybe bringing Google and Microsoft into one. So
I
does
would
he
I
pull
would
back from that? Does he
Yeah.
pull back and say, listen, I'm mad at you, BB. That wasn't cool what you did, and I don't have to do this. I'm doing this because I know this is a huge legacy issue for you. It's a legacy issue for me, but I'm doing it because it's good for everybody. But you're not the flavor of the month. I'm not too pleased with what's going on over there after we had so many conversations over the phone, maybe not in person, but over the phone.